this episode, we are full on spoilers for both the novel and the film.
Welcome to What the Adaptation, where we take things that were written or produced in one medium and transferred over another. This happens to be for the Wheel of Time, season 2. We're all excited for, adapted from book to television. I'm Bill, also known as Matt Stagger.
I'm Jen, your keeper of the chronicles.
I'm Max.
And today with us, we have our guest, Sara James. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So really excited to talk about these 3 episodes. We're going to pretty much bunch them together as one. So the questions are going to apply for all 3. Keep it nice and simple. Max, what can you tell us about these?
Yep. Let's see. Give me 1 second here. My thing lost track here. Season 2, episode 1, A Taste of Solitude, is directed by Thomas Napier. Their most known works are as second unit director on 2019's Aladdin, 2018's Mary Poppins Returns, and 2017's Beauty and the Beast and The Darkest Hour. It was written by Amanda Kate Schumann. They're known for writing 30 episodes of Blacklist, 3 episodes of Berlin Station, and episodes 2 and 7 of the first season of Wheel of Time.
Nice.
Episode 2, Stranger and Friends, was directed also by Thomas Napier, written by Catherine B. McKenna. They've written Wheel of Time, a TV series called Dirty John, and a TV miniseries called Fatal Attraction. Episode 3, What Might Be, was directed by Sana Hamri. I probably completely butchered their name, I'm sorry. They're known for directing 19 episodes of Empire and having an additional 97 executive producer credits on the same show. They've directed 4 episodes of Shameless and currently have 58 director credits on their IMDb page. It was written by John McCutcheon. They're known for writing 3 episodes of the TV show Impulse and 1 episode of Wheel of Time. They also have a co-producer of the first 3 episodes of the second season of Wheel of Time.
Okay. Before we get into our questions, I would like to just ask everybody their overall feelings of the 3 episodes. And let's start with our guest, Sara James. Your overall arching feelings for the 3 episodes.
I think, much like a lot of people do, that it is a massive step up in quality, appearance, costuming, yada, 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 yada. The list just goes on and on of the ways they've upped their game. And I'll have to say, as someone who was not the biggest fan of the cold open for the first episode for the first season, although it was good, it was not my favorite, that I think that the start of this season was much, much stronger.
Yeah, I 100% agree on that. Definitely a step up. The writing and the pacing were much better, much more even these first 3 episodes, I think, than they were last season. We had sporadic ups and downs as far as pacing went. I felt like these 3 episodes flowed really well.
100% agree.
Yeah, I'm really excited for what the rest of the season holds in store. I think it's doing a lot of. Bill couldn't have said it better. That pacing is really great, and I think it's keeping great time with the books and where we were at kind of when we're beginning this 15-book series. So I'm kind of excited for things I know that are coming and kind of gonna see where they're going with the twists they've put in. So the things that are different, for the most part, are good, that I like. So yeah,
I agree.
Like I said, for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be issues. Nothing's going to be perfect. So I think we can all agree on that.
mm-hmm.
All right, so let's get into the questions.
Okay, question number 1 for tonight. Of all the changes from the source material, what are some you enjoyed and what are some you disliked? Any volunteers?
I mean, I'll bite the bullet and go first.
Okay.
couple I like, and my first one is probably going to be divisive. Is I like the Lan and Moraine change. A lot of people are not liking it. They do not like that there's strife going on between them, and they're showing this more human side to Moraine in her vulnerable moments. And I think it's beautiful for that reason. We don't get a more human version of Moraine in the books until much later. I like it. I like that they're making her more complex. Plus, you have Rosamund Pike. You got to give her more to do than just be stoic and, you know, book Moraine. It's Rosamund Pike. Let her run with it.
Yeah.
Second of all, that death, I'm all for it. I mean, it's heartbreaking. It breaks my heart, but at the same time, it was unexpected. And he's not a plot bearing character, so it doesn't break the story for me. His death doesn't really change anything that happens for the rest of the books. So I enjoyed those changes.
If I can quickly cut in here and say I 100% agree with, like, because the thing that I said that I liked the most was the thing that I was most trepidatious about before this scene started, and it is exactly what you said, Bill. I was like, they're going to do a whole new scene with Moraine being stilled. Where is this gonna go? I was like, this could go either way, but or I don't know if she's exactly still. The jury's still out kind of on what's going on with her, to be honest.
I think she's shielded. Nobody knows it because it was done by a man. So they're not going to be able to tell.
Exactly. It could be.
I
I'm not sure. Go ahead, Miss Sarah. Sorry.
I have a thought on that.
Mm.
In the opening bathtub scene, one of the things that Moraine does is she does kind of this with her hands. She's looking at her hands, and it's before she reaches out with her one hand to kind of mix the motion from when she heated the tub back in the first season. Later, in I believe episode 2, all the episodes are kind of a blur for me, so if I'm getting the episode wrong that this scene is in, I apologize. But it's the scene with Nynaeve and Leandrin where they have their little quasi fight in the kitchen, and Nynaeve is briefly shielded, and Leandrin has her say, and then she releases the shield and walks out. And Nynaeve's reaction is almost identical to Moraine's, where she lifts her hands and her hands are shaking a little bit, and she's looking at them. I really think that this is one of the things that they are doing really well this season. It's not, I mean, in the first season, they had these mirroring scenes at the beginning of episode 1 and then at the end of episode 8, where you, or actually in the cold open in episode 8, where you have the one scene that's the third age in ruins, but then you have the same age in the second age where everything is still there. They're doing that this season, but they're not waiting a whole season to do it. There's little loops, there's little hiccups in the pattern of the things that they're doing plot wise. And I think that's one of them. I personally believe, it's my loony pet theory, that is meant to be many hints that she is shielded and not stilled. And I think it's because of that kind of mirroring of what Nynaeve does after she is stilled with what Moraine does when she's in the bathtub. But again, that's just me.
In the show, there is a deliberate pacing of scene between scene before we see Moraine again to make you forget about that scene. And that is deliberate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I absolutely agree with Bill here saying yeah, absolutely, that's the thing I was the most not sure about, but so far I actually really like how they're writing in this story. They're doing it all themselves and they deserve all the credit. It's actually good and entertaining. The thing that I didn't like the most, it's not really a change, well, yes it is, from the books, is there's a lot of kind of scuttlebutt on the social medias about this exact thing and what's going on with the dagger. Seeing Loyal just up and walking around, but yet Matt needs to be monitored still. If I were new to this series, I would be confused as to what the dagger stats are, like exactly how powerful it is and why it's important, because it seemed important when Matt had it, but people are getting stabbed by it and they're just healed and everything's okay, meaning loyal. So the two hands are kind of different and there's not really any explanation as to why. Maybe that is coming later, so maybe we're going to get that. I don't know. But I'm like, when I saw that, I was like, there's a little bit of not sure about like the dagger stats. Like I just, the D&D in me is like, what's the stats on the dagger? Like what's the show dagger if it's different? Like what is it? Like also maybe Ogier have like a special resistance to the dagger. That'd be a cool plot twist that I could get behind also too. So I'm not exactly sure about what's going on with that. That's the only thing that's making me pause so far. And if that's the only thing in season 2, again, excellent job. So that's the only thing.
Actually a great segue for like one of the things I dislike.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that fight with Lan and the Fates. I like that fight.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a scene where he picks up the Myrtle's blade, and I'm like, why would you pick that up? They don't explicitly say in the books whether picking one of those up is a bad idea.
He
But
doesn't
that
touch it. He doesn't touch it. He uses his sword.
But he
leans
does grab
down.
its handle and fights with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, grabbing the handle, but that's not the same as
But that
touching
still
the
feels like a
Thakandar
bad
blade.
idea. That still feels like a bad idea.
No, agreed. It's probably not
It
the
still
wisest.
feels like a bad idea to grab even by the handles. Feels like a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets slashed by the blade like a dozen times, which
True,
also
the Thakandar blade. I was like, oh, he got stabbed by a Mogul blade. I mean, Thakandar blade. Like that's what I was thinking of.
he's been
when
hit
he
by
got hit by
a
it.
dozen times. But
criminal.
also there
Yeah.
is a book scene where was it Telmain's like this is like heavy
Talmanis,
book
yeah.
spoilers. Heavy book spoilers where he apparently takes out several Fades, I guess. And it's because he's already been stabbed, and apparently if you're already dying, it's easier to kill him, I guess.
The killing of fate is to already be dead.
Yeah. So there is that aspect.
I was just going to say in the books, that is kind of Lan's whole deal, is that he fights like he has a death wish. He doesn't really care if he dies. He just wants to go out in the dark. And so that almost death wish that he has in his fighting style makes him a really good swordsman. And maybe that's a little bit what Talmanis has, is that he just, to use a betting metaphor, he's all in. He's all in, and maybe he hasn't been before that, because some people when they're fighting, you fight to live. You don't fight to. It's, I think, again, heavy book spoilers. Memory of Light at the very last book. That is actually what Lan says in the very last book. Oh, I'm not fighting to win. I'm fighting to kill you, or whatever the exact quote. Yeah, yes. So maybe that was what was going on there.
But it's like they're not really showing the how corrupt these things are very accurately, when like these blades should be very deadly, even a slash. And
I don't think they're gonna have the dagger have that aspect right now. I think they're sticking with it corrupts the user, not that it immediately begins to rot the body, which is kind of what happens in the books.
Yeah. And the fight with the Murdrill, I had no issue with that fight. I thought Lan did fantastic when he's fighting these Murdrill in the dark, in the home territory with no light sources. He legitimately took out 2 of them while getting his ass handed to him. I thought he did fantastic.
I've wondered at times if there's almost a Venom-esque quality to the dagger, where it's this symbiotic relationship between the dagger and whoever holds it. And what we saw in season 1 was the darkness coming out of Matt's mouth, and then he sucks it back up. And so maybe it's partly that symbiotic relationship that makes it dangerous, and not everybody that picks it up is necessarily going to have that immediately upon first touching it. Or even after holding it for a while. Maybe it's a relationship that builds over time, but that's speculation. I think that maybe perhaps by the end of this season we'll have a better idea of that. I don't think, speaking of departures from the books and differences between the book and the show,
Mhm.
uh, I don't believe that we're gonna get the fight scene between Matt and Gawain and Galad this season. I think that the only Andorran royalty that we're going to see this season is going to be Elaine, and we're not going to see the rest of House Trakan until next season. So that means that if some version of that makes it into the show, it's going to have to wait until next season. And if
Mhm.
that's going to happen, I think that Matt has to go back to the tower at least briefly. I'm assuming at the start of next season. Uh, and that would allow for him to reconnect with the dagger, have to go back there, have to be separated from the dagger, have the duel. I don't know how they make that work. It's an awful lot to wrestle if they were really going to consolidate book 2 and book 3 in this season. Maybe we should
Well,
talk about that. Where are we seeing consolidation of book 2 and book 3 in this season? I'm seeing a lot of book 2, and other than Rand's kind of isolation from everybody and being apart from them, which is kind of both book 2 and book 3, I'm
Mhm.
seeing a lot more book 2 than book 3 so far.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
I think so, and I think that was the plan for the first half of the season. I think they are mainly sticking to book 2 with certain aspects of book 3 thrown in. I do think that with Matt, though, it would be possible to have him return to the tower, at least to return the horn if he blows it. That would at
Mm.
least make sense. So I guess he could bump into him there.
Hmm.
But it does look like he might be heading towards the west.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have no doubt that he's being led to Falm or Falme, depending on how
Mhm.
you want to pronounce it. I know some people got really upset at the pronunciation on the show.
I was like, it's fall. It's still fall Main to me, but I'm like, okay, if they say fall, I understand what they're talking about, so it's fine. It's not like I'm like, where is that? I'm like, okay.
I go my own way.
Hmm.
I pronounce it falma like it's an Italian word. Falma.
Oh,
There you
But
go.
that's just me. I might be the only person in the world that pronounces
that's
it.
good. I
No, I
like
think I'm
that.
gonna start using that.
Falma.
Changes I liked. I did like the whole like mental house that Rand
Mm.
was in. Though I wasn't really a big fan of the whole fetch quest with the red wine he had to get.
Mm,
It just felt like a whole D&D quest. I need this wine. Go
it
find
did.
it for me.
I
Mm-hmm.
love that it didn't
That
matter.
he then poured out on the table. Yes.
Yes, that
Well,
it didn't matter.
That's what I was
I
doing.
didn't mind that part of that part thing. Because you had the whole Alana thing making everything sexual, and I felt like that was the exact same thing with Logain.
Mm-hmm.
He made it kind of sexual.
I got more of that from Ishi than anybody else with Perrin in episode 3. That came off a little creepy. I mean, like, I know Ishi's supposed to be creepy, but that came off a little predatory.
Oh, like I want
I'm
to
like,
see the
ugh.
animal in you in the
Oh
in
yeah,
the
putting his hand on his knee,
transport
holding his
knee.
face while he's giving him water. I'm like, this
Yeah.
feels extremely intimate. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but I mean, the fact that he's chained up makes it a little icky.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
Ishi, so it's supposed to be icky.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get it.
To
No,
me,
it's a little ishy.
Yeah.
yeah.
Good call. It's a little Ishi.
I like it.
So I had I agree. I agree with that, but I was creeped out for a different reason, is because I am of the opinion that there is nothing more evil than kindness weaponized, than kindness used. It's the whole Mean Girls thing where you like pretend to be somebody's friend to suck them in to then stab them in the back or even stab them to their front, and you're using your friendship and your nice with them to eventually hurt them. I almost feel what that was this. It's like, oh, let me give you some water. Let me do this. Let me do this nice thing. But it's not nice at all. It is intended in the most malicious way where it's going to come back. He's doing it for his own reasons. And we don't know what those reasons are, although I think we know what his reasons are. It's he wants parent a wolf out because he wants to turn him to the dark. He wants to turn everybody to the dark. He wants everybody to worship the great Lord of the Dark, the Dark One, evil incarnate.
That kind of reminds me of the
And you can't
Dark
do
Friend
that until
Social.
he powers up.
That
Yeah.
kind of
With a
reminds me of the
girl?
Dark Friend
Oh,
Social with a girl.
yeah.
I half expected him to just like leave her outside and go back in.
Yeah, me too. And when he didn't, I'm like, that makes it somehow worse because he has
I
just
expected
effectively convinced that little girl that he's fine, that he's a good guy. I'm like,
Mhm.
that's so evil.
watching that. I was expecting a finger food moment. I was expecting
Yeah.
nom 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 and screams and I'm not sure if I'm gratified that they didn't do that or disappointed that they do that, but that's what I was expecting at that moment. I was like, oh,
I was
your
almost
hand with
expecting
mirror's
here,
mouth.
take this, and handing it to the Trolloc and walk away.
Yeah. Ooh.
Here's a snack.
But it's almost worse. Hey, let's make friends with this big old. It's almost worse. It's worse. And again, it's that weaponized kindness of
Question number 2. How well did the show interpret the appearance, nature, costumes, props, scenery, creatures, practical VFX, and how did you enjoy the music?
as I said in my opening, I think a lot of that is upped from season 1. I know that the season 1 costumer Isis is an Oscar-winning costumer, but with no disrespect to her, the costumes feel more like real clothing people would wear and more actually lived in. I just for that alone, it's the clothing doesn't look like this ethereal thing that was made just to be shown on camera. It actually looks like clothing that was meant to be lived in. And there's other than maybe Maureen's outfit in the first outfit, because Maureen's outfit seemed extremely practical in the first season, and I liked it a lot. What I've seen so far just seems really nice. I very much liked at the start of episode 3 in the testing sequences, uh, Nynaeve's dress, where she was a little girl, but she was seeing her as herself, except when she looked in the water, and then she could see the little girl nature of that dress uh, was it's just I could go on and on and on. There's just so many details. Adolaz is like, what is that? House coat? You would call that colorful thing with the wrap that she had for her hair, where she looked so comfortable. Oh, please move to the left. I need to land high. Yeah,
Mhm.
that whole uh, uh, that whole costume was great. Varen looks very put together. She looks very librarian-y, which is great for a brown. Moraine's almost peasant clothing as it's like she's taking on a penance for herself with the carrying of the water every day and doing it over and over again until that's a big hill. She's schlepping water up a really big hill every day. And at least she's not doing it in a fancy party dress. She's doing it in clothing that's appropriate. All of it just seems so appropriate to what they're doing and so lived that it's not a distraction. And that's I think how you measure good makeup and how you measure good costuming is when you notice it and go, oh, that's nice. And then it kind of disappears into the background because it feels so natural.
I was going to say, I agree completely. For me, uh, the soundtrack. Oh my God. Lauren Balfe. Oh, I love the soundtrack probably more than season 1 because it's sort of a mix of season 1 with new stuff. I mean, we still got some themes here and there, like Nynaeve and Land's theme when they got together
Mhm.
and the testing vision and things like that. But yeah, it's definitely progressed and improved, and that score just absolutely was a winner for me. So that was a standout.
I definitely need to actually listen to it outside the show.
Mm.
I know they have a couple of them out now, I think.
September 8th, baby.
Yeah.
Uh, costume wise, I definitely noticed like a lot of. I can hardly like recognize her like between like teaching the students and like in her room. Like they look two different people. If that makes
Alana.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like two completely different people when she's put together versus basically like bra off and then hanging in the eating persimmons. Looks like completely different people.
I think that's fitting. I mean, it does show her private side is a completely different person than her teacher side.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
It's just completely different, almost a completely different outfit, but it's not the different outfit.
Mm-hmm.
To make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
A couple of things. One big thing and then little things. Can we talk about the Shan and when their outfits? Can we talk about the helmets of the freaking Shan with their little? It's talking about Venom, like Sarah was talking about earlier. It looked like Venom face, like helmet. I'm like, oh my god! And even the mask that Surat was wearing, the nails, everything. The Domine, woo, creepy. It gives me chills. Like absolutely. Just, I mean, gold star standard. Ding ding ding. Hit all the little parts for me. The other thing is just kind of an odd thing, but I see it every time it comes on, and this even includes season 1 as well. Someone in costuming, I don't know whom specifically, has a thing for appendages, whether it be rings or earrings. I have noticed this. There is more, especially with the keeper, Leon, with her little forked elf ear appendages that she had this season. Even people from the Two River, right? And their stout Two Rivers woolens in season 1. There was a lot of rings and earrings that the peasants were wearing. Even if they were teeny little ones, they still had them, and different piercings. Alana, right? Every single episode she was in, she had those big long earrings that went all the way up the sides of her lobes. Even Sheriam, and I was every time they came on, it almost pulled me away from looking at Sheriam's face. She had these weird 2 big C earrings that came around and hooked forward that were unlike any earring I've ever seen in real life. I'm like, where can I get this at a store? Like they're not made. Like they don't, where did they conceptualize the way that this thing bent like that? It was really cool. So I'm seeing you, whoever you are. I don't know who you are, but your taste is made expressed on screen. And that obviously has nothing to do with the books. It is 100% interpretation for the show, and that needs to be said. I think this is the best place for it here to answer this question. But yeah, Shan, everything. And then just as a side note, just check out the ears. Even Leandrin's got some pretty wicked earrings going on. So they've always got something going on in their ears on screen. I like it. That's like my little niche thing that I like doing, is looking at the earrings.
Okay.
You'll be
Jen is in the
fascinated.
ears. Check. Got it.
Check it out.
It definitely has to be said that, the Sanchin armor is so much better than the armor in The Witcher. That wet armor thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That has to be said.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Of all the things that could have happened between them and this, it's the best outcome.
Speaking of the Shunshan, I do want to just briefly mention the one Damani. I think she's credited as Miri. I think Tuli, Miri. Anyway, the one that is doing the Salem Witchfinder child thing of going out and pointing out who can. I think that if you go back and look at the end of the last scene of season 1 and compare to the costuming and makeup this year, they've made some subtle but important changes, because I think that the makeup is a lot more practical and realistic and reproducible on them. And because of that, it seems more terrifying to me. And the way she is there with they've been called ball gags, they've been called muzzles, whatever they are.
Binkies.
Yeah, the binkies. The whole Salem witch trial vibe of this very petite, very slender, almost girl-looking young woman going through and pointing out people to be pulled out, literally pointing out witches if you go with the white cloak term for it. And for collaring, it's just and it's when you get somebody that is in the bottom rung of society picking the people that are going to be standing there. Oh, it's brutal. That whole section with the Shanshan is just brutal. And if there's one thing that I don't think in the books, it almost seems like this benign thing. It's like, oh, just swear the oaths and you'll be fine. And
Right.
everybody just kind of does that. And they never really addressed, Robert Jordan never really addressed in the books, well, what happens if you don't? And by the way, I just have to give props to Guy Roberts. There's this one moment, you know, before his tragic demise, spoiler, uh, is they're pulling him forward and he just kind of slaps his arm back and he swaggers forward and he's got kind of this side to side rock and his shoulders are back and her arms are out like he's a gunslinger and just that swagger forward. What a commanding performance. In just 2 to 3 seconds you get pretty much everything you would ever need to know about Uno. And would Uno really ever have bended a knee to the Shanshan?
No.
No. So how do you reconcile that? I think the only way you reconcile that is what they did. I don't like it. My heart is broken. I'm so sad. But when they did that, I was so viscerally angry. And that's what you need. That's what you needed in that moment. Is it a perfect translation of the books? Is it a one-to-one adaptation? No, it is not. And there's no arguing that because it's just simple fact. But if you want to capture what is in the essence of in the books, the heart and soul and spine and blood and sinew of what is in the books, boy, did they get that moment right, because the Shanshan are terrifying. And I was not really terrified of them at the end of season one, but I am now. I am totally terrified of them now. They're capable of anything, and that moment just proved it.
Did Bill have any?
The soundtrack for one. The Sean Chan costuming was just so beautiful. I mean, even Ishii looked great with his tie that's not really a tie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know what that was, but I
Yeah,
loved
me
it.
too. But I did as well. I know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm.
And Jessica
I
Boone
love
as the
how
voice. Mm,
Oh
that
yeah.
that face caged sort of almost like a
With
tribal
lips.
symbol over her face was just beautiful. I loved it.
Mhm.
I did want to briefly
Ish-
mention the Trollocs that we saw.
Mhm.
The one we had a close up on was very human, but clearly not human.
Yes.
And then the fades we finally got to see the shadow slipping.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And in a fighting, we finally got to see some of their serpent-like jerky, their
Mhm.
movements, how fast they were. It was very dark, so it was hard to see. And that was kind of a complaint some people had, is that unless you're watching in a good TV in a dark room, it was hard to see what was going on.
Mhm.
And that could be a negative to this show, is that you have to be very cautious when you're making a scene like that when it's dark, is that they do have to make sure that people who don't have a great TV, that they can still watch it when it's not in a perfectly pitch black room.
Mhm.
I think sometimes they must screen these with the executives and the show people in like a little mini theater or a home theater that is just that. It's dark and it's probably projected, and so it comes off lighter. And I just agree. It's literally darker, not just uh, uh, metaphorically darker,
Mhm.
which season most definitely is, but it's literally darker, and it is a little.
I kind of put it
that
like with
scene, I
sound
was
engineers, they need to work with like not the best equipment to see what everybody else hears.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
You know, some people, we like to hear what people are talking about and not just hear the giant explosions. You know,
Michael
and
Bay.
we
Yeah.
yeah, we like to, you know, not hear whispering when they're talking.
Oh, well, there's some
Yeah,
whispering I'm glad we heard, and that was in the sanatorium scenes with
Oh
Rand
yeah.
walking through the halls.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure we heard a certain uh, other self whispering, and I think I know who that is. And it was a beautiful detail to have that kill them going
Mm-hmm.
on in the
Mm.
whispering in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of sound, I did
I'm
want to
not.
circle back to some things uh, that got said about the Shan Shan. The whole reason I went on that rant about the Shan Shan earlier was actually an audio cue. It was a music cue. Matt Staggers, you were talking about the soundtrack earlier and about how much you like it. I loved that callback to the theme that was used at the Shan Shan reveal at the end of season 1, episode
Mhm.
8, when the guards part and here come the Damane, and there's the Shan Shan, the recognizable Shan Shan theme, so that you know, here's trouble coming, and you know pretty much what happens next is less a surprise because that thematic music is there to do that. I just love I I loved that, and it
Mm-hmm.
was I almost cheered. I was cheering for the bad guys, but just because of the music. So
Yeah, I think it was very important for the entire writing team and Rafe to make sure we are afraid of the Shan Chan. And I think there was no better way to do it than the way they did. Because I hated them already, but after what they did, now I hate them with passion.
Yeah,
And that's the key. Now I hate them with passion.
that's right.
All right, well, that's actually a really great segue for question number 3. What scene or sequence do you most remember, enjoyed, or hated in this first 3 episodes?
I mean, it's Uno. It's got to be Uno. Come on, come on, come on. Like the most visceral reaction. I was like, I
What was
remember
that reverse card he pulled?
I know, I
Uno
know.
reverse.
In reverse. I was like, when it happened, I'm like, well, yep. I said, I don't think you're healing that. There's no healing that. You can't come back from that. He's not walking away from this. I'm like, so
Oh.
I mean, and then I was like, already? I was like, damn. I was like, it's quick. I'm like, well, bye, like,
Well, you know, if they did heal it, he still won't be walking away from it.
mm-mm, mm-mm. I'm like, I'm like, yeah, that's unhealable. Unhealable.
you know, in the run up to the show, there was that one moment from the trailer where he was flat. I don't know if it was flat on his back or flat on his face, but he was on the ground, and people were like, "Oh, look, there's Uno. He's dead. Look at him." And so I'm watching the show. We get to that episode, and they're rounding everybody up and throwing them in the middle. And Uno's on the ground, and he groans, and he's got a little blood on him, but he's alive. And I'm like, safe. Oh,
Yep.
now I don't have to worry about dying. And then to have gone through that feeling like, whew, that's not happening. And then to see what happened, which was, I was reminded of The Walking Dead with the brutal moment where they killed, spoiler for The Walking Dead, where Negan kills Glenn with Lucille with a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire. And I did almost that they might pull a Walking Dead because those Shan Shan that were escorting him up to the palanquin had baseball bats. They had, you know, they both had baseball bats.
Crunching
So
time.
I was half expecting that, and so when they got him on his knees, I was like, maybe he'll just bite his tongue and choke something out, and they'll let him. And then, I'm sorry, I'm just recapping now.
No, that's fine.
I gotta get
You
off
know,
it. I gotta get
I
off it.
honestly, I almost expected some kind of oath rod to come out when they said we'll make you swear.
Ooh.
And
As
then
soon
that happened, and there's like, ooh,
As soon as they brought him forward, I saw that spike on the end of the palanquin and went, "Oh no! Oh no!" Because you can see it.
That had to have been,
Have a seat.
I'm like, "Oh
that was,
no!"
I don't know if that
Jen, you
made the
make it so
preview
much
shots or
worse.
not.
Sorry, I don't know what would be worse, honestly. I genuinely don't.
I know. Honestly, that at least Uno was done quick. Vlad the Impaler style, that's going to take a while.
Very nice way of putting it. What a gentle way of saying what we all were thinking. Have a seat. Anyway.
As for a standout sequence for me, I mean, Nynaeve's testing was just a masterclass in acting.
Mm-hmm.
For the love of all that's holy, if there's not an Emmy in her hand this time next year, I'm going to be very upset.
I think
Zoe
Rosemary would be
Robbins,
kind of pissed off at that.
I don't really
There's a
care,
lot
man.
of people that are saying, and I agree, that the lack from the books, they got, boy, a lot of that dialogue in those scenes was lifted right from the books, and it was great. I love when they are pulling from the source material for dialogue when it's appropriate and not just stuck in to have something stuck in from the books, which I could talk about more, but I'm going to sideline that. But I liked that they lifted a lot of that dialogue, but the one faux pas was, I don't think that they included Be Steadfast,
They
and a
did not.
lot of people
Mm-mm.
noticed, and I missed it.
We all said it in
I
our
missed it.
heads.
So,
Mm-hmm.
We all said be
Yeah.
steadfast when they said
Mm-hmm.
the way will come but once. Be
Be
steadfast.
steadfast.
What about you, Max?
Those were pretty much the two big standouts of all through the 3 episodes. You know, Nynaeve scene and Uno, obviously.
Right.
Beyond those, we have let's see.
Elaine. I mean, just meeting Elaine.
I mean, her, if we can call it the hooch scene where she makes her own hooch was pretty spectacular. You know, even though
Yeah.
she didn't do that in the books, it felt very Elaine.
Oh yeah, she's the one that enjoyed getting drunk that one time, and it just
100%.
made...
I'm like, that speaks volumes what's going to happen in the future.
Just the casting of her alone. The minute she
Really
walks on
good.
screen, you're like, okay, that's
Oh,
Elaine.
it's Elaine.
That is Elaine.
100%
And when she
Elaine.
says to Egwene, like, this is too strong for you? What? But you're a innkeeper's
His
daughter.
Yeah, that makes sense. That was very good dialogue.
Although this does kind of mean that we're not going to get the drunk Elaine scene. I mean, how do you get the drunk Elaine scene if she can drink an innkeeper's daughter under the table?
Because she keeps on drinking.
Tom drinks her under the table.
Good. I want to see that.
Yeah, that's
a drink
what I'm
off
thinking.
between Tom Marilyn and Elaine. I would love that. Let's do it.
I'm here for it.
As long as they're not too touchy-feely with each other, we're gonna be okay. But that's
agreed. Let's cut that part. Oh, can we talk about the fact that they are switching their shoulders? Thank you for that, writers. That is absolutely thank you. Shiriam, when she she tells her, "Who let your maids up here?"
Mm-hmm.
And goes after Elaine. She tells her, "I'll take the punishment."
Mm-hmm.
And Shiriam says, "You're going to feel my switch between your shoulders
for the
not
next, not your hiney."
Yeah.
Got
so
you.
It's not spanking so much. It's still corporal punishment, but thank you for making it a little less awkward.
Spanky. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just thought of that when
They're
very good.
Something that's
maybe I'll keep that for Tame in the Black Tower.
There is something that they
just for
had
you
in the scenes in Karahanan at the party scene where one woman gives the invite to Rand and then he tosses it in the fire and she's like, "Ooh, bold move," and he says, "I choose neither."
Mm-hmm.
She says, and so that is a little nod to the in scene where he keeps getting the invitations, and I'm wondering if they're going to continue that and we'll see more of that leading up to the party at the Damodred Manor, or if that was a one-off and we're going to be done with it. So I'll be interested to see if they follow through and actually keep that from the books, or if that was one and only reference to that, and it's one and I don't see it anymore. It'll be interesting. I'm looking to see how that plays out throughout the rest of the season.
If I'm not mistaken, there is an episode titled Deus the Mar coming out.
Interesting. Well, that'd be nice.
This
Think that
season,
sounds right?
I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure I saw that. I'm trying to check now. Same as Max.
I'm not right now, but that sounds
Okay.
familiar. I seem to recall there was a tiny little scene where Rand actually gives a coin to a kid in the
Yes.
Foregate. And that's like the second time I believe he's given a coin to a kid. He did it in the first season as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yosha talked about that in an interview and said how
Yep.
important that moment was to him.
Yep. And
One of us. One of us.
I also enjoyed the scene with Matt and Min, especially with the alcohol again, running theme here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, Donal Finn as Matt is working for me.
Yeah, me too.
I love Barney Harris.
Me too.
He pulled off a very moody sort of maudlin Matt,
Mm-hmm.
but I think Donal Finn absolutely is bringing out that spark of mischief and humor. Just
Mm-hmm.
that one scene where he's mimicking the locks.
Yes, that was
it's
perfect, Matt.
So Matt.
It's
that
so
it-
Matt.
It just melted my little heart.
You know, given the letter scene we had, I almost hope we get him writing a letter and we have someone reading it. It's just very badly written.
Yes. I want to see like his actual like way he says things, and it'd be great to see Elaine kind of trying to talk like him or whatever. That would be great. I would like that very much.
Somebody on Twitter did point out that the biggest change so far is that the Emmons Field 5 actually communicate with each other because Perrin wrote a letter. Like, that's the biggest change. I'm like, good point.
Are they wrong? They're not.
No.
Can I talk about time a little bit, since it is the Wheel of Time? We have the Beltane reference, which gives us a little bit of a timestamp so that we know that we're pretty much a full year from the start of the show, first episode of first season. And we hear at 1.5 months for people being in the tower, and I think Matt says 6 months for how long he's been in a room, or vice versa. And I did not get the feeling that the first season lasted 6 months. There was a 1 month time jump from when they were traveling to the tower with Logain and with Rand and Matt and with Perrin and Egwene with the Tinkers. So we know a month passed there because we got that timestamp in the show. But I'm not sure how the rest of that adds up to another 5 months. I know that they were on the road for a while before they got to Shadar Logoth between episode 1 and episode 2 of the first season, because there's Plan makes some reference that it's been days since they've seen a sign of Fades or Daleks, which, because they're not showing them camping every night to mark the days, there's clearly some time is passing. But even knowing that, I got the impression of weeks or maybe a couple of months, certainly not half a year. What are your all thoughts?
I've never considered it before just this moment, actually. I'm going to be honest with you. When people are traveling in fantasy, just in general for me, whether I'm reading in a book or just in anything else, the romantic in me wants to imagine it's a grand journey and they're stopping and they're breaking bread and they're at the fire pit and they're going on for another day and doing this and that. So passage of time, my partner is just like you. He before we even brought up the fact that I was going to be on tonight, he's like, okay, he goes, has it been a year? He was doing the math of what you just said, Sarah. He was like, it's been 5 months and it's been this. He goes, okay, so that makes, is it right for it to be Beltane again? Yes. Okay. Yes. That makes sense for season 2. He didn't mention the season 1 to me, but yeah, I just, I'm thinking they're going on, maybe there's some side quests. I Skyrim it out. Like, I'm like, maybe they were doing this and they stopped in a village and something happened off screen that we don't know. So I don't know. I don't, I let that kind of sweep
I
by.
for Egwene and Nynaeve, I was adding in, well, it must have taken time to get from Faldar to the tower. So that had to have added, what, a month or two,
That's what he was saying.
probably.
Eternal, I'm
But that
thinking it
aside,
like took about maybe 3 months from the start of the first season to
Mhm.
Faldara, leaving like a 3-month gap between Faldara to 6 months. But we have Min's story of when she fled Faldara, and I think she said she got caught like a month later.
ooh, let's not talk about that, because the storm
Yeah.
racked, so she had to change course on a river. Yeah, well, I can't.
But regardless,
Okay.
like she
I
said,
was savage.
she ended
Well,
up in Tarvalon, and like a month after in a bar, a Red Sister caught her. So she
mhm.
was in Tarvalon for about a month before she was caught.
If you
Mhm.
can trust
So
her.
yeah. So, she left Faldara, made her way to Tarvalon, and she's in Tarvalon for about a month before she was caught. So, take that as you will.
Mhm.
For
Mhm.
me, it wasn't that big of a deal,
But I did.
mostly because Egwene felt so settled into the tower. She had a routine. So starting her off with doing her cleaning duties, she seemed like it was an everyday thing for her. So I was able to just gloss over any time difference. Like, okay, she settled into this. So yeah, I didn't think about it much. But
Mhm.
yeah, I could see where if you're a very detail oriented person, you're going to look at the dates and go, that doesn't quite jive. But I love the fact that it's a little ambiguous, particularly for Matt, because he's been in a cell the entire time. So he doesn't know day from night half the time. So it makes sense that Matt's not sure if it's 5 months, 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that detail for him.
And he could have been in a cell longer too, because he didn't go to Faldara.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, there's a
true.
whole bunch
So if he
of
skipped that whole month of there,
mhm. Yeah, there's a whole bunch you don't know what Matt's doing before he got caught. That's interesting. I might be in. You might get that later. Who knows? I don't know. Interesting.
so unless they're saying it took 5 months to get to Tarvalon, I don't know,
Hmm.
or 7 months.
That seems
I
too
don't see
long.
how, but okay.
Yeah.
How well written was the dialogue this
Let's
episode,
do
and did
this.
it adapt the dialogue from the book well?
Other than Be Steadfast, which we all already have uh kind of talked about. Yeah, I think right now you're getting to where there is clear delineation between book and show writing. And at the first season it was a little bit muddled in some parts. The Manetheren was kind of a different spin, but it was still kind of like right there in the gray water about how it was told. It's a lot apart from the book. Obviously, the entire story being book, and then the way they delivered it was new. So there was a lot of both in the same scene happening. But now you're having minutes of screen time where there isn't a reference to the book at all, and then we go right to book reference. So now we have a clear, there's more of a gap than there was in season 1 of show versus book writing. But as a book lover, I feel like I'm heavily comforted and petted and kept secure and safe, because there are so many Easter eggs in the show for the book fans that aren't even just things even on screen that may not even be articulated in a sentence, but they're still there. Representations of, oh, like, the fade on the door. I was upset. Of like, if they're not going to show the fade nailed to the door in the city, even the fact where Perrin walks in and he's having the vision of the family that he remembers, even in the book, right? At that same exact city. And then he knew that they were sitting there at the table and the food had flies on it. That was the same exact thing from the book that they showed in the show. The only delineation that I like, things that they did that were different, I understood. For example, Huron is not in the show. He's just not in the show. It's Elias now who is the sniffer, which I'm like, oh, that makes sense because of his wolf abilities. And I loved Huron. I fucking loved Huron. Huron was heart, Huron. But do I understand the fact that they got rid of Huron in order to introduce Elias? Because otherwise, I don't know how they would have had him in the show. Okay, like, you know what I mean? So, the choices that they're making thus far, even if it's taking away a character which I personally love very much, and that's Huron, and what they did to Uno, I'm okay with. I'm all right with. I haven't seen any negative effects to it. And I think there's just this silent agreement that no one's really said out loud, but I think everybody understands that somehow Moraine is probably going to get her powers back at some point. So no one's that upset about Moraine not being able to use the power right now. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe she'll stay for all of the seasons of Wheel of Time unable to touch the power, but that seems unrealistic to me. I don't know how they're going to do it. So right now I'm like, all right. Also the fact that, you know what, hey, if the two rivers don't have Irish accents, okay. If the Shanshan don't have southern accents, it's going to be interesting since we haven't really heard anybody talk except Suroth. I don't know if they don't have southern accents. I'm actually okay with that. But by God, if Bail Dolman, who we were introduced to in this season, didn't have an Illioner accent and they didn't have that pirate accent, I was going to riot. But as soon as he started talking, and he did it very well, it wasn't too weird. You could obviously tell there's a clear like distinction of his speech and everyone else, but it wasn't like so overly over the top done that I was like, oh my God, this is like Shakespeare in the Park, overly dramatic, and I would hate that. No offense against Shakespeare against the Park, it just would be out of place. It was very nice to see that the distinction between Ilian's speech and everyone else in a good way. So, in a God honoring way, I guess. So that was nice to see. And even the whole exchange between him and Moraine about how she kind of bluffed him, but she didn't even care about the poem, and then he was like, you know, he only sold it to her for 1 mark. It was interesting. Actually, when she brought the mark out, and there was the camera zoomed in on the coin between her fingers, I was like, you know, the book Jen was looking, I'm like, is that a Tarvalin mark? Is she using an Andoran crown? How was she paying to him? Because I know there's differences between currency, like the Tarvalin mark, like, is pretty high versus other different countries. Like, so what is she using? So I was kind of looking to see if they would talk, or even that would be discussed, but so far, no. And if they don't talk about that, who really cares? I do, but just little thing, because I'm a Brown. So like, I would like to see if we can it's ever mentioned the fact there's different kinds of currency in lands, even though they're all gold coins, it doesn't mean the same.
I'm glad you brought it up, because I was going to bring up Bail Doman and ask all of you what you thought, because they did slip a doobie in there, but like you said, it wasn't overstated, it wasn't heavy-handed, it wasn't yarg, we ladies, yarg.
Yeah, I would have hated that.
So
Pirates of the Caribbean, Johnny Depp.
I yeah, I did notice with the Shanshan that as they were dragging people out there, like, come on, you, or there was just some little background dialogue from the people. And it seemed to me that it was all American accents, not necessarily Texas accents or not necessarily Southern drawly, but they were all American accents. And I, as somebody who lives in the United States, I have mixed feeling about the Americans being the Shanshan, because it's the rest of the world is probably going to look at that and go, "Yep, that tracks. America,
Well, it kind of does.
America is the Shanshan."
You know, I kind of look at it like I'd rather them do an American accent than a bad Texan accent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. I do be okay with Bail Dillman.
Me too.
As for their adaptation of the text, absolutely. In parts where they went word for word, it was well done. It was beautifully done. They're not staying so faithful to the writing that you're getting bogged down in it, because let's face it, changing it from the book medium to the TV medium, there are things in the book that just aren't going to work. So the dialogue they do take, I think, is well done. What they omitted, I'm okay with them omitting. So I'd say overall, I think they have done well adapting, you know, the language from the book to the show.
Dialogue wise, there's no real dialogue I really hate or dislike. the Moraine land scenes is like, I dislike those scenes, but you're supposed to dislike them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's hard to separate. And I think what they're doing is supposed to make you dislike what's going on in that scene, while at the same time make you feel sympathetic with a certain Leandrin for
Mm.
And I
a
hate them for
switch
making
up.
me feel that.
And I believe they're purposely doing this for the audience to make you dislike Moraine for what she's doing with Lan, and this whole forced bond thing with Lalana already, potentially, and this sympathetic angle of Leandrin and this whole Moraine dynamic with her having a essentially blackmail with her, getting Moraine's thumb off of her, because Rand had that with Moraine. He wanted her thumb off of him in the books,
Right.
and we're getting this dynamic where they're going to try to make us, the audience, like, oh, we don't like Moraine. She's really getting in everybody's business, and they're going to do this nice flip on us, is what I'm suspecting, where we're going to find out, oh, Moraine's really not this bad guy. And I suspect that we're going to get a scene with Celine and Moraine a lot sooner than we expected.
Okay.
Especially
Interesting.
since I suspect that Moraine is heading to Carrion with Rand is located. And it seems very interesting that they're in the same location already, with Rand's teacher already.
Right.
That seems
Yeah,
very
well-
suspicious to me.
We were just talking about the Bail Doman scene, and one of the things that came out there is that's where that moon dial was carrying.
Mhm.
And so if she's going to investigate the poem written in blood, which I do think is going to be a big factor in the next episode, that's where she's got to go to investigate. That is the scene of the crime, so to speak, is that.
Yeah.
Since the question we're currently on is on dialogue, I think we have to give props to Uno's profanity. The scene with the dialogue with him and Perrin and Loyal, when he, it was interesting that Loyal would wind him up that way. I thought that maybe he was winding him up unintentionally, but it does seem like it was intentional. Like they were messing with Uno, and he just fell for it and started with a profanity, talking about what he was going to do to Fane. I think that did a long way towards building him up as a character in the non-book readers who are show watchers, to let you know, hey, this is who Uno is. He's profane but lovable. He's dedicated soldier. They slipped in the fact that he was tracking ahead before they brought Elias on board. So they really developed his character, and they did a lot of that with the dialogue with the party as a whole in there. And of course, I love the profanity. I'm not sure how much I love the mix of book profanity with modern profanity. I'm not sure that they've gotten the balance on that right. Sometimes it feels forced in both directions. So I still think they're trying to find their feet with that a little bit in the dialogue. But generally, it was just delightful to hear Uno curse in his unique manner.
I can't wait to hear Elaine curse.
Did the actors deliver their lines well? Who would you call the best and worst actor? And you can choose up to 3 people.
I think I'm going to go with my as who hits the nail on the head as far as casting and their character is Kira Coveney as Elaine. Can she be any more Elaine? Is it possible to?
No.
The second actor I'm going to go with is Zoe Robbins as Nynaeve. Fun fact, Nynaeve is my favorite female character in all of the books. So that is a special place in my heart when I'm looking at the screen and then seeing her interpret the character that I happen to love. Over how many characters are there in the Wheel of Time? So many that she beat out. So that's very important to me. And I remember one of the huge heart-wrenching moments early on in the books, I think for every reader, is the very first time you get a glimpse at an Aes Sedai really going through struggles and what it means. Because when I started reading these books and Aes Sedai was presented, I'm like, these women are just overly pompous. They rule everything. What do they know of struggle? What do they know of the solidarity of the farmers? And what can they don't walk around like they're better than everybody else. How can they presume to lead? How do they know these people's hearts? I think the accepted test really showed me as an outside viewer that no, Aes Sedai actually do go through struggle, hardship, their fears, worries, doubts, because you don't see them exhibiting any of these things in order to lead nations. So I think that's kind of and some die, like as we know from the accepted test because of it. So there is a toll there, and it needed to stick with you really heavy. So a Nynaeve's accepted test was the very first time that I can think of anyway where you saw an Aes Sedai struggle bussin'. So they did that in a real heavy, and it needed to be a heavy impact. And it definitely brought that in the show. I think it needs to, because at that time you really didn't have a lot of sympathy for Aes Sedai. And I think at a certain part you shouldn't, but at the same time it makes more sense as to how they can understand the normal people because they understand pain and at that elevated position. So yeah, it was good.
I do want to talk about the writing just a little bit, specifically as it relates to the accepted test. There were some deviations between the details of the accepted tests in Gate 1, Gate 2, or Arch 1, Arch 2, Arch 3, and how those exactly presented. But I found it very interesting that I saw a parallel to Dickens's A Christmas Carol, in that we do have past, present, future was what was kind of represented in the gates in those three passes through them. And it's almost like we got to see Nynaeve's past trauma, kind of the thing that has messed her up her whole life, is the past trauma of being in that cellar, being in that basement while her parents are killed. I mean, what a brutal thing for a little kid to go through. Uh, so of course she's traumatized by it, probably not even on a conscious level. Uh, and then you see how that manifests in the present, because in the past she wasn't able to protect the people that she loves because she was a little kid. And now in the present, she's not able to protect the people that she's loved because she's gone off and done something maybe that she sees as selfish, or maybe she just sees it as a decision that she had to make. But she can't be in places at the same time. She can't take care of that. So it's that past trauma represented in the present. And then even with the one that's set in the future, it's this idyllic kind of wish fulfillment for her of what she would choose if she was just going to choose how she felt when she went into that for the third time. But how does that play out? What happens if you walk away from this opportunity that you've been given? And what it means is that for a brief time you get what you want, but in the end it all comes down. So it's almost like her past trauma coming back to haunt her two more times. Once in the present because she's not able to help the people of the two rivers, and then again in the future because she's not able to protect the people of the two rivers and her family, and even possibly the people of the world, because she made a choice that was uh, the choice that she would make before she went through the test. And so I just find that from a writing standpoint, as a storyteller, even though it deviates from the books, it's really, really strong, and it works on multiple levels. And I think that that's great storytelling right there. And I think that that was really well done. It works for her as a character. It works for world building for the show. It works as a reference to the Christmas Carol from Dickens, because I love when there's echoes with other things that are like the first age becomes the second age becomes the third age. It's the Wheel of Time turning, baby. And I love when those kind of themes, things that seem familiar but they're spun out in a different way, happen. It was great, great, great. So,
I mean, there are kind
which is
of,
my long-winded of saying a way of I agree with Jen.
I'd say there are kind of echoes to the original test in the books too, because it is kind of past, present, and future there as well.
Yeah.
I'll go out on a limb here and say I like show testing much better than book testing.
Mm.
Book testing, gate one was kind of bland.
Mm-hmm.
She was being chased by Agenor.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yes.
She used the one power, and she got mad when she got called out because the fight wasn't over.
Mm-hmm.
So some of those changes, I think seeing Nynaeve's pain of losing her parents is important to her character, and I like that a lot better than just the generic she's being chased by one of the Forsaken.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was much better, much more interesting, and character developing at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Zoe Robbins is definitely the top of my list for these 3 episodes. Kate Fleetwood is also on my list because anybody
Oh,
who can make me like or feel bad for Leandrin, you got skills. I'm mad at you, but you got skills.
so good.
So she's on there. And my third would be is it Nyla or Nyala? Yeah. Nilla Ayala as Adelius. I love her so much.
Yeah, she's great.
Adelius. Oh my god.
She's the
I,
auntie we all know and love, or wish we had if we don't have her. I like her a lot too.
oh my god. I loved her so much. The whole could you move a little to the left? Perfect. She's staring at Lan. She
She
cracked
does.
me
I
up.
think she does like a toodaloo. Like she's like that. So
Oh,
great.
Lan, which
It's
was
so great.
awesome.
She just
She,
needed a little hanky to wave or a bell. That's
Those
great.
wool pants look so hot.
I think Adelaus represents pretty much the fandom. We are known for being a thirsty fandom. I think she is our spokesperson in the show.
That's
So
great.
yeah, I'm gonna give her my third spot because she was so enjoyable.
Love it.
I'll go the trifecta as the Alana thruple as one actor.
That's okay.
The Logain actor, Alvaro Morte.
Yeah.
Yes.
He played Madness fantastic, even though he's not, mad in the books. He's more depressed. I'd still say he was a little mad.
Mm-hmm.
He's working at it.
Yeah.
And I gotta give props to Uno as an actor.
Oh yeah.
Guy
And
Roberts.
his
Yeah.
best supporting actor, the Horn.
If I'm gonna give you 3 favorite and then maybe 3 worst, I'm gonna go with more secondary characters. I really, really have to give props to the actor that played Errol, the PTSD
Oh
patient that
God.
Rand was helping.
Ooh, yeah.
Who, by the
Yes.
way, we got that he's a sword master.
He's a blade
His
master. Yeah.
he was lovable. He was instantly likable. He was instantly sympathetic. Uh, his physical acting was good. His delivery was great. Wow, he was just really, really stunning. A
Mm-hmm.
favorite of mine from the movie Under the Tuscan Sun is the woman that played the Karahanan noblewoman that Rand talked to. She is always a delight anytime I see her in something. And that scene, in a very, very brief scene, she just really encapsulated everything in the Game of Houses in Dustimar. And she did it with not a whole lot of dialogue, but even with the way she was looking at people and pointing and her tone of voice, it was just so embodied uh, uh, what all of that is. And my third, that it was a real favorite of mine, I mentioned her before. It's the one Damane of the Shanshan, because I saw her and I was instantly like, ooh, I don't like her.
Hmm.
She gave me Salem witch trial vibes of the little girls that accuse people of witchcraft. And the fact that we're getting such great performances from people that are minor characters uh, really, really speaks to the quality of the show. It's just they were so good. On the negative side, I I am going to get dragged for this, but I'm going to say Daniel Henney. I feel like that's not his fault. I feel like a lot of this uh, is the writing a little bit, especially the one line that he had where he says, nobody has ever told me to be quiet before. It's a great line and it's a funny line, but there was a moment in the garden where he was talking about their bond, and he, I, by the time we got to the other scene where he was talking about that, I was like, boy, for somebody who doesn't talk a lot, you talk a lot. He had a lot of dialogue. I felt like all he did while he was on screen was talk. And so I'm missing the book stoic, mostly silent land, and I know that that's a horrible disservice to him too as an actor, to put him on screen and not give him a whole lot of dialogue. Uh, but he does have a lot of dialogue. He has more dialogue, I feel like, than Moraine. Moraine is relatively silent compared to him. It's almost like role reversal a little bit. So he would be my least favorite, and then after that I struggle to find, because all of the performances were good, and even him I liked. I don't want to drag Daniel Henney because it was a great performance.
Amazon, by the way, on your behind the scenes, you need to start adding descriptive text. You don't have any for your
Mm.
behind the scenes footage, none.
Mm.
So I don't know. Just in case anybody sees this, let's get on that.
So I know there's a bunch of
Please and
X-ray
thank you.
stuff with locations and other stuff.
Yeah, I love that the Dark Friend Social is listed as being in Tel Iran, Riyadh,
Mm.
according to the X-ray. That made me happy. I'm like, what the awesome.
I I have a continuity issue. The writer in me just cringes at it. The if we go by the location descriptions in the X-ray, the little manor house where Maureen is staying with Varen and Adelas is in Eridomen. And then she says to Master Doman while he's there, to Bail Doman, she's like, go back to your ship, which I believe he says he left in Whitebridge. So he's going to go from Eridomen to Whitebridge. The map work on it
It's a
doesn't
long
make
trek.
sense.
Yeah, that is a very
Yeah,
long
it's
That is
trip.
a
it's in the
very
same category.
The things present in this episode. Which ones caught your attention, and what do you think about these themes? Are events of the books or events happening in real life?
themes. Everyone's favorite themes. Um, ooh, I have to think about that. Even though I knew it was coming. What's the thing where, I guess, I don't know, I'm trying to paraphrase it as small as I can. You think you know somebody and then you don't. Like Moraine, like you think she's actively being shifty right now, but she's not. And then you think you knew Leandrin is a bad person, but then you find out more about her. Things aren't as they seem. So maybe, just to put it in one word, illusion. Maybe people masking themselves. Obviously Suroth in the physical sense, and then you have everyone else just kind of, people aren't being honest with each other.
Masks?
Deception, maybe, kind of. I don't know how else to say it.
I mean, as far as themes, you have quite a few actually. You got Egwene trying to come to grips with the fact that she's not the best at everything right off the bat for the first time in her life. So she has to accept that. Nynaeve is having to accept that A, she needs help, and B, her decisions are not about her. I mean, they never have been, but the one time she tries to make them about her, everything goes to crap. So in the end, I think she has to accept that, and she has to accept her responsibility as an Aes Sedai. because she's not making an effort at all when we first see her in the tower. So I think acceptance is a big one. Moraine has to accept that,
Mm.
you know, she doesn't have the power anymore at the moment. She has to accept that, you know, her actions endanger others, which she does. I think she also made a point. The scene before she tells him they're not equals, she goes on and on about how much she admires him. So I don't know how anybody is not getting that when she says we're not equals, she means you're better than me. That's what she means to Lan. The entire scene before that was how much she admired him for fighting the shadow with nothing but a sword, and how brave and how admirable she thinks that is. And then she turns around and says, we're not equals. And I mean, she's saying you're better than me. She's not saying you're beneath me. At
I
least in
took
my
it.
head.
I did not take it that. I like that actually. I did not take it that way. I took it a different way of we don't share equal confidence with each other. We're not in equal confidence. I don't have to tell you my ambitions or where I'm going, and you don't have to tell me either. However, I did not catch what Bill was saying about how the fact that she was saying that in the scene before, and then how you're better than me, and maybe she's feeling some self-doubt about herself, and maybe she thinks that Lan is the stoic one, meanwhile she's faltering, so that would make sense with what Bill was saying. So I could see like either one of those things. I was like, we're not on equal terms of frankness and openness, but I actually also like Bill's thing there. So I could see either, or I'm open to maybe another interpretation, but that is also very interesting. I like that too. Food for
Yeah.
thought.
So I think acceptance is a big one for these 3 episodes. For
Mhm.
just about every character, Rand is accepting that, you know, this power is going to come out whether you like it or not.
Mm.
Skanky girlfriends is not the way to go. Just saying.
You better check your door. I think Lanfear is knocking.
But I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, I mean, I think that was a huge overall arching theme for these 3 episodes was acceptance.
Good one.
I really do feel like they are, each of them, including Rand, all wrestling with not so much with the isolation, but of the feelings of powerlessness. I think that they all feel very disempowered. I mean, it's obvious with Moraine, but it's also there with Lan that he feels uh, like he's not at full power because he's missing the bond, and he doesn't have the other half that completes him, and that's there with Matt because he's he's literally powerless because he's in a cell, and there's Nynaeve who's powerless because she's the most powerful channeler in the world and she can't channel, and there's Egwene because she's you know, achieving her ambitions and doing all the things that she's wanting, and she's not the best water carrier ever because everybody's talking about Nynaeve, who could care less about the praise everybody is heaping on her, and it's all the. And I don't think that Egwene is vain or needy or wants to be the center of attention. It's just she's demanding of herself that she be the best, and she's not doing that. She's not living up to her own high standards for herself. And so there's this constant drumbeat of disempowerment, and everybody is seeking it and not quite making it work. And I think that that's going to culminate at the end of the season with them finding their power. I think they're all going to find their power by the end of the season, or at least the path to achieve their power.
I have 2 for us.
Mm.
The first being watch your language or you're gonna get a sore throat.
Okay, fair.
I'm gonna take a sip of water to ease my throat here as you can.
The second being information is power.
Ooh.
We see that with Moraine. She's has her spies out gathering information.
Mm.
You know, she had Bail Demand get the letter. You know, and Land's trying to get information from her, and he just can't get anything out of her. Varen has a shitload of information that she is clearly hoarding in a couple of books. You know,
Yes.
and she's kind of doling out what she wants when she wants. She clearly knows details that about who a dragon is. And Moraine was very surprised to find out that she knew about that.
Yeah, and almost
We
stabbed her.
have she did. We have Egwene who is trying to get information about, you know, channeling. She ended up learning a little bit more information from Alana than she expected to learn.
That was a wonderful scene.
We have, you know, Rand attempting to get information from Lolgate. And
Very true.
And he gets some information from the nobility in the city about what the Hunt for the Horn was really about.
Yes.
I think that
And
was a Damadrid that was talking to him.
the what?
A Damadrid.
Could
You
have
know,
been.
Moraine Damadrid. Or
One of the family, Marine's family.
Yeah.
members.
Yeah.
I am not sure. But you know, Selene is there, and she's has her own information network in the city.
Mm.
And of course we have Ishmael, who has his own information network as the Master of Lies. And he's using his own information against Perrin, feeding him lies about wolves.
Yep.
Feeding his own lies against children and Trollocs. Feeding lies to Soroth on a Pelican. So, you know, information is power.
It's interesting to see which beats they pick as important to keep and which ones they don't. I think they made a good choice with Nynaeve's accepted test. I think that they made a good choice with Elias to move him to season 2. I think that made sense because otherwise he's just going to be gone, and I think they're going to keep him around rather than have him pop in and out of the show. Is what I'm thinking and hoping will be the case.
Well, we want to thank you all for watching. We appreciate you coming along and especially on these 3 episodes, joining us and our excitement. I especially want to thank Sara James for joining us. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it was awesome. And we hope to have you back because there are going to be plenty of episodes this season. So we'll get you on for some good ones if we can. Jenn, Max, I want to thank you both for everything.
Always a
And
pleasure. Yeah.
I think we'll sign off. And by the way, don't forget to be awesome.